What if I told you that behind some of the most beautiful songs ever recorded, there were stories nobody wanted you to hear? Marvin Gaye didn't just make music. He made confessions. He made protests. He made things so personal that record labels tried to stop him, and audiences didn't always understand what they were hearing until it was too late to look away. Today, we're going through 10 songs that didn't just define Marvin Gaye's career. They revealed who he actually was. 10. How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You, 1964. Most people hear this song and think, simple, sweet, early Motown, a love song, nothing more. But here's what they don't know. Marvin Gaye didn't want to record it. In 1964, Gaye had one ambition: to be a jazz singer. Not soul, not R&B, jazz. He saw himself in the tradition of Nat King Cole and Frank Sinatra. He wore tuxedos on stage. He wanted sophisticated audiences, concert halls, white tablecloths. Motown had other plans. Berry Gordy kept handing him pop songs, dance records, hits designed for radio, not for the kind of artist Marvin saw himself becoming. How Sweet It Is was one of those songs written by Holland Dozier Holland, polished, commercial, designed to sell. Marvin recorded it. It reached the top 5. Audiences loved it, but the tension never went away, because every hit that pulled him toward pop stardom felt, to Marvin, like a step away from what he actually wanted to be. That friction between the artist Berry Gordy needed and the artist Marvin Gaye was trying to become would define the next decade of his life. 9. Ain't No Mountain High Enough, 1967.
Ain't no river wide enough.
This is one of the most joyful songs Marvin Gaye ever recorded, and it was made with a woman who was quietly dying. Tammy Terrell was Marvin's most beloved duet partner. On stage, their chemistry looked effortless. In the studio, something real passed between them: warmth, trust, a connection that translated directly into the music. What most people don't know is that during their recordings together, Tammy was already suffering from the brain tumor that would kill her at just 24 years old. In 1967, she collapsed in Marvin's arms on stage in Virginia. He caught her as she fell. He never fully recovered from losing her. After Tammy's death in 1970, Marvin refused to perform live for a long time. He went into a depression that reshaped everything that followed. Some people believe that without losing Tammy Terrell, What's Going On would never have been written the way it was, with that level of grief underneath every note. The joy in this song is real, but it exists next to something Marvin never got over. 8. I Heard It Through the Grapevine, 1968. Here's the story almost nobody tells about this song. Marvin Gaye recorded it first. Berry Gordy heard it and rejected it. He thought it was too dark, too raw, too different from what Motown was selling. So Gladys Knight and the Pips recorded their version. It went to number 1 on the R&B chart. It was a massive hit. Marvin's version stayed locked in a vault. Then something unusual happened. Radio DJs in certain markets got hold of Marvin's recording, grittier, more desperate, heavier, and started playing it anyway. The audience response was immediate and overwhelming. Gordy had no choice. He released it. It spent 7 weeks at number 1. It became one of the best-selling singles in Motown history. The same record Berry Gordy called a mistake became the defining moment of Marvin Gaye's career. And every time you hear that bass line, you're hearing a song that almost never existed. 7. What's Going On, 1971.
What's going on, baby?
Berry Gordy called this the worst record he had ever heard in his life. Not an exaggeration, not frustration. That was his actual assessment of What's Going On. The song many critics now consider one of the greatest ever made. Marvin had been changed by grief, by the Vietnam War, by watching his brother Frankie come home from combat, with stories that didn't match anything happening in American music at the time. He wanted to say something real. He wanted Motown to let him speak. Gordy refused. He wanted dance records. He wanted love songs. Not protest music, not social commentary that wasn't the Motown formula. Marvin Gaye issued an ultimatum: either Motown releases What's Going On as a single, or he would never record another note for the label. Gordy backed down. The single came out. It reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the R&B chart. The album that followed became the first political statement any Motown artist had ever made, and it changed what soul music was allowed to be. 6. Mercy Mercy Me, The Ecology, 1971.
Oh, mercy, mercy me.
In 1971, almost no one in popular music was writing about the environment. It simply wasn't done. Pop songs were about love, about heartbreak, about dancing. Marvin Gaye wrote about poisoned oceans, contaminated air, and a world quietly destroying itself, and somehow made it sound like the most natural thing in the world. What makes this song strange is the restraint. He wasn't angry. He wasn't screaming. He was asking questions, in a voice so gentle it almost hurt. Where did all the blue skies go? That was the hidden power of Marvin's approach. He never lectured. He mourned. And that made people feel the weight of the song before they understood why. 5. Let's Get It On, 1973. Most people assume this song was written as seduction, a smooth record, a confident performance, everything exactly as it appears. But the original idea came from somewhere much more complicated. Ed Townsend, who co-wrote the song, had recently come out of rehabilitation for alcohol addiction. He had turned to spirituality during recovery, and what he originally wrote was not a love song, it was a religious meditation. The phrase, "let's get it on," was, in his mind, a call to embrace life, to stop holding back, to commit fully to something larger than yourself. Marvin Gaye heard that draft and transformed it into something entirely different, an emotional, sensual plea that became his signature song and turned him into a sex symbol for the rest of his life. The song reached number 1 and stayed there for weeks. But beneath the surface of what everyone heard, there was a gospel song that never got made. 4. Got to Give It Up, 1977. Here's something that changes how you hear this song. Marvin Gaye was terrified of live performance by the time he made it. The collapse of Tammy Terrell on stage, the years of personal crisis, the drug use, the failed marriage, all of it had made performing in front of crowds feel almost unbearable. He described the anxiety as physical. He didn't want to be there. So he wrote a song about someone who walks into a party, doesn't want to be seen, stands against the wall, and slowly, reluctantly, starts to dance anyway. That character was him. The song became a massive hit, number 1 on the R&B chart for 5 weeks. Decades later, it became famous again as the basis for a legal dispute when Robin Thicke's Blurred Lines was found to have copied its feel. But the original story, A Man Too Afraid to Dance, writing himself onto the dance floor, is the one most people never hear. 3. Sexual Healing, 1982. By 1982, Marvin Gaye was in Belgium, not touring, not recording, hiding. He had fled to Europe running from the IRS, from a second divorce, from cocaine addiction, from the kind of personal collapse that ends careers. He was broke in the most visible way possible, a legend with nothing left. Sexual Healing was recorded in Ostend, Belgium in what was essentially a survival attempt. His manager convinced him to try one more time. The production was simple, almost skeletal. Marvin recorded it in pieces. It became his biggest international hit in years. It won him his first Grammy Awards. It was, by every measure, a comeback nobody expected, least of all Marvin himself. He returned to Los Angeles in 1983. 18 months later, his father shot him dead, one day before his 45th birthday. Sexual Healing was the last chapter he got to write, and he wrote it in exile, with nothing left, in a rented studio in a country that wasn't his. 2. Inner City Blues, Make Me Wanna Holler, 1971. This is the song Marvin Gaye made when he had run out of ways to be gentle about it. What's Going On asked questions. Mercy Mercy Me mourned quietly. Inner City Blues was something different, a slow, grinding portrait of urban poverty that didn't reach for hope, didn't offer resolution, just sat inside the pain and refused to leave. What people don't know is that this track was built on almost nothing. A simple bass line, minimal instrumentation, Marvin's voice close and unguarded. No arrangement designed to soften what he was saying. The album, What's Going On, was the first time a Motown artist had been given complete creative control, and this was what Marvin did. With that control at the end, he chose not to comfort anyone. 1. I Want You, 1976.
And it's just the same. You.
Most people think Let's Get It On is Marvin's most personal song, but I Want You is the one he shouldn't have made public. The album was written entirely about Janice Hunter, a woman he had fallen obsessively in love with while still married to Anna Gordy, the sister of Berry Gordy himself. The relationship was already explosive before it started. Marvin was 35, Janice was 17. He poured everything into this album. The longing, the guilt, the obsession, the way desire and self-destruction can feel like exactly the same thing. He recorded it, knowing that Anna Gordy would hear it. He recorded it, knowing Berry Gordy would hear it. He released it anyway. What makes I Want You different from everything else Marvin made is that it doesn't explain itself. It doesn't justify anything. It's just the feeling, exposed completely, with nowhere to hide. What if I told you that behind some of the most beautiful songs ever recorded, there were stories nobody wanted you to hear? Marvin Gaye didn't just make music. He made confessions. He made protests. He made things so personal that record labels tried to stop him, and audiences didn't always understand what they were hearing until it was too late to look away. Today, we're going through 10 songs that didn't just define Marvin Gaye's career. They revealed who he actually was.